Welcome to For the Record. I'm Michelle Wright. This month marks a year since Allegheny County Executive Sara Innamorato took office. And during this episode, I sit down with her to both look back and look forward, examining the successes and challenges in the county's top post. Take a look. I want to start out with this, though. When you were elected, a lot was made about the fact that you are the first female to be elected as county executive. I want to know how that's going and if you've noticed anything about being a female, any challenges that you've run up against in this office.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your show today. It's been quite an eventful year, and it's been really lovely to be the first woman in this position and to really pave the way and show, especially young girls, what is possible when you can put your mind to something and you can work together collaboratively. And I think, my thing in coming into office was not just about, my identity and my story, but also how I wanted to govern differently. And, my experience working in the nonprofit space, working with community groups, working in the legislature beforehand was really centered around teamwork and community building. And so, I don't think I do that because I'm a woman, but it's definitely something that I have centered in the way that I've approached governing. And it's been really exciting to pave the way for others to come after me.
So we really should talk about the tax increase that was implemented. Taxes haven't been raised here on properties in a decade. And so now they're going up 1.7 mils for all the homes in Allegheny County. Tell me why you raised taxes, why you felt like you had to.
Sure. So, I didn't come into office and say, I want to raise taxes. No elected official wants to do that. But once you get into office, it's like looking under the hood of a car and really examining all the components and saying, what's working, what needs maintenance. And what we found getting into office is that the last 4 out of the 5 budgets had been passed with a structural deficit, which means that the previous administration was spending more than revenue it was taking in. And a lot of that was made up with federal money that was available only during the COVID pandemic and that COVID era, and all that money is gone now. So looking at our finances, I knew that I had to be fiscally responsible and say, I was elected not to have an easy ride, but to make tough decisions that put us on stable footing for the future. So we raised taxes in a way that allowed us to begin to chip away at that structural deficit of $81 million. It allowed us to maintain staffing and programming at a level that is suitable for delivering quality services for the people of Allegheny County. And it gives us the opportunity to put more money away in our savings account, which was depleted because of the way that the budget was passed over the previous 5 years. So, I just want to thank the residents of Allegheny County for paying your property taxes, because what that means for all of us is that 911 calls get answered, that we help our most vulnerable in our community, our seniors, our unhoused, our children through early learning resource centers, that we can administer elections. So these are things that county government does, and in addition to, paving our roads and plowing snow off of them whenever we have weather like this. So that's what your money goes to. And so we did a really heavy lift over the course of the budget to get folks to really understand where their taxpayer dollars are going. And once we explained that to people, once we explained it funds public works and police and elections and human services and our public health initiatives, they said, yeah, we don't want those things to go away. So, we began to chip away at the problem. And, what I do is, make sure that we can solve problems and move forward and not just, kick the can down the road, which had been done for a number of years.
Any plans for a property reassessment along with that in terms of raising more money?
It's definitely, so I think the important thing to remember about a property reassessment is that it is not a revenue raising tool. It is a data modernization tool. So when you reassess a property and you do a reassessment on all the different buildings, types of buildings that exist in our region, you have to ultimately end up revenue neutral as a taxing body, which means that the millage rate would be lowered if the value of the properties increase. So it's a proportional program that you go through, process that you go through. So, you know, a reassessment won't solve something like a structural deficit, but it will give us better data. It will be more accurate to show the values of different properties.
So we're going through with that?
Well, we have a pending case with the Pittsburgh Public Schools that we have to resolve. But my hope is not to blindside any community member with a property reassessment, but to have a open, honest, and transparent dialogue about what a property assessment is, what it isn't, how we solve the problem and not just do what we've always done in the past, and then every 10 to 15 years the court comes in and forces us to do something. We need to think about a better path forward, and that means bringing all parties to the table to say, how do we fix the problem? How do we actually create a system that's sustainable? How do we not blindside community members? How do we put policies in place that protect longtime homeowners in rapidly gentrifying neighborhoods? How do we protect our senior citizens? How do we make sure we still create opportunities for first-time home buyers? So there's a lot of things that have to go into a property reassessment. It's not just saying you're going to do it one day and then, you know, the $30 million it costs to administer magically appears and all the policies are in place. So we'll be very methodical and strategic in our approach.
A new administration is getting ready to be sworn in at the White House. I'm wondering how you feel about that in terms of any impact that we will see here in Western Pennsylvania.
So, you know, no one governs alone. You need partners at the federal, state, and local level in order to be successful. So, you know, while I'm from a different party of the incoming administration, my plan is to build relationships there and try to bring back as much money as I can for our region, because we are really focused not only on maintaining the policies and programs that we have at the county, but actually priming us for growth and investing in our economic development department for the first time ever in a very real way. So we have a lot of opportunity that exists with land throughout our region to help spur development in the green technology space and robotics and eds and meds and life sciences. So, you know, we really want a strong partnership with the federal administration. With that being said, you know, soon to be President Trump again had a previous administration, and we know the cuts that came when the Republican Party was in control at the federal level. A lot of cuts through HUD, which is our main source of funding for housing. So housing is an issue that has come up time and time again when we go out to the community and we talk about what they want government to do for them. And housing comes up in form of making sure seniors can age in place, making sure that there's enough affordable housing, making sure there's home buyer opportunities for young families, making sure that we're addressing homelessness. And, you know, unfortunately, in the previous go around with this administration, we saw substantial cuts to the federal dollars that we actually put out into the community at a local level. So we'll be thinking through strategically on how we work with partners in the philanthropic community, with our state partners, Governor Shapiro, on how we can pad the housing programs that are so vital for so many residents in Allegheny County, but also a big demand of the people who live here for us to do more in that space.
I'm wondering, and this might be jumping ahead a bit, but could that mean yet another property tax increase if we see less money from the federal government?
Well, I mean, I think that was another issue that led to us having to increase taxes. You know, a lot of the federal money, some of it comes directly to counties, many of it goes to the state and then comes to us. So if we see cuts of the federal government, it is a little bit of a lag before it impacts us at the local level. But what we saw year over year with the state budget is that many of our critical block grants, like mental and behavioral health, like homelessness support, like election support, like operating dollars for a 911 center, were flat funded or had very small increases, but our costs went up substantially, and we expanded services at the request of the residents here in Allegheny County. So when we see that flat funding at the state or federal level, we either have to cut services or we have to make up the costs if we want to continue to deliver for the people here.
Still ahead on For the Record.
It sets us up on solid footing to be able to, work with the complexities of issues that are involved in the jail.
What the Allegheny County executive is saying about the newly named jail warden. Welcome back to For the Record. Just a little more than a week ago, the new year began with a major development for Allegheny County and a win for the Innamorato administration, as the county executive's nominee to be the next jail warden was approved by the Jail Oversight Board. Now Innamorato talks to me about that process and what she sees for the future of the jail. Let's talk about the new jail warden, just approved, Trevor Wingard. He's saying that he's going to have trouble maybe filling some staff positions, down a couple of hundred, almost, a couple of hundred positions. Where do we stand right now with the jail, and why should residents of Allegheny County even care about what's going on there?
Yeah, I'm very excited about our new warden coming in, Trevor Wingard. And what's very exciting about him is that the Jail Oversight Board actually approved him last week, which was great because the last warden from the previous administration had never been approved actually by the Jail Oversight Board. So he was kind of at the helm of the Allegheny County Jail as kind of interim. So for us, it's really exciting to have the buy-in from the Jail Oversight Board, to have the buy-in from the community, because it sets us up on solid footing to be able to, work with the complexities of issues that are involved in the jail. You touched on one, staffing. That is critically important for us. Over this past year, we've done a tremendous lift recruiting correctional officers and putting people through the training. What has been difficult for us is keeping people at the jail. So many people will express interest in wanting to work there, but then they ultimately end up leaving during their first year because of overtime and because of conditions. So now that we have someone at the top who can be a stable and guiding force, who has a storied history, a profound history and a deep understanding of corrections, really serve in that leadership role to really dig deep and figure out how we can shift the culture, how we can make sure we're not only recruiting people, but we're retaining them. And we're hiring the best people for the job, because it's really important for the quality of life of the incarcerated individuals who are at the Allegheny County Jail.
And there have been some lawsuits about poor conditions, about aggressive guards. How are we addressing that?
Yeah, so I've had the privilege of going into the Allegheny County Jail about a half a dozen times over this past year. And every time I go in and I go on to the pods where the residents are, and I ask incarcerated folks, what is going on here? Like, what do you, what's the good, what's the bad, what's in, something you'd like to see done differently? And you actually get a very measured response. People aren't like, I shouldn't be here, right? Like, they're not asking to be released per se, but they're saying, there are people here who really treat me with dignity and respect, and there are people who don't. And what we have to do is create a culture of excellence and making sure that people who work at the Allegheny County Jail, and there's many who uphold themselves to the highest standards and, treat people with dignity and respect and really abide by policies and procedures. And there are some people who don't. And we need to make sure that those folks either change and get on board with this new level of professionalism, or, they can find jobs elsewhere. So, but what's great about it is that we do have a great starting point. We have really committed folks who really care about corrections, they care about public safety, they care about the health and welfare of the people who are in that facility. So, I think having that leadership in the new warden will help just solidify and grow that.
Still ahead, how the Allegheny County Executive is focusing on housing and the people now being helped. Welcome back to For the Record. Tackling housing in Allegheny County, that has been one of the goals of County Executive Sara Innamorato, and she's talking to me now about some of the successes and the setbacks her team has seen along the way. Your 500 and 500 plan, how is that going? And I'd like an update on how it is. It's addressing affordable housing.
Yes, it is. So our 500 and 500 initiative is simply adding 500 new deeply affordable units in 500 days. So, we're partway through that 500. We've housed over 100 people, and we've brought online over 100 units. And it's been incredible because we've brought together unlikely partners, because nothing big happens like addressing homelessness in a new and innovative way if you don't get all parties to the table. So we have private developers, we have both housing authorities. So we have the City Housing Authority, the County Housing Authority, Department of Human Services, the city, the county, public safety officials, and saying, like, how do we move people from our shelter system into more stable housing? And it is absolutely critical because we've seen a 79% increase in shelter usage in the last few years, the last 5 years or so.
What do you think is the reason behind that?
Well, a lot of that is being driven, unfortunately, by senior citizens. So we've seen over the last 10 years a tenfold increase in people over 65 utilizing our shelter system. So when we talk about addressing homelessness, it actually is about supporting older adults, supporting seniors in our region. Many of these folks are using shelter system for the first time, and they're only there not because they have a substance use disorder or severe mental behavioral health issues. It's because they're older and they are on a fixed income and they can't afford rent anymore, and something catastrophic happens and they can't find a place to live.
That's just heartbreaking.
It is, and I think I really want the community to understand, when we're putting dollars into homelessness, that, homelessness looks different for everyone. And, the 500 and 500 initiative, it's not the silver bullet that's going to solve homelessness across the spectrum, but it is going to help these folks who are first-time homeless, who are often struggling financially, just to give them some stability and, free up our shelter system for the folks who are more chronically homeless, who need more complex interventions. So it's a really exciting initiative. We've been able to talk to federal partners, to national organizations about it. So, hopefully we continue to get beyond 500 units and continue to invest with different revenue sources into that program because it's so needed in our community.
So right now you said you've housed more than 100, but you still have a long ways to go.
We
What
do.
is the situation right now in these freezing temperatures with some of our neighbors out there in need?
Yeah, so last year when I came in, we had launched a code blue process, which meant that, whenever temperatures dipped below a certain degree, they called a code blue and they went out and they tried to get folks who were living on the streets into shelter systems. This year, we exponentially expanded the number of shelter beds that are available, and they are open all the time. And so you're not talking about just trying to mobilize and open something in the short term whenever weather turns, but they are open throughout the season. So we have an excess of beds. So, every day we have people who are working in street medicine, who work in community outreach, who go to homeless encampments and encourage people to get inside, to stay safe, to get warm, and to connect with services.
Let's talk about 2nd Avenue Commons a little bit. There was a fire that shut down the building, and a lot of people who needed a place to stay then were forced out, and everybody was scrambling to try to figure out what to do. Can you give us an update and describe a little bit about what all happened and how that impacted everybody?
What was devastating, so right before the week we announced our 500 and 500 initiative, I think that was on a Thursday. On a Monday, we saw that 2nd Avenue Commons was on fire. So my team and I, we immediately went down there. We talked to the residents. We assured them that we were going to find them, a safe place to stay in the interim. Thanks to the Herculean effort of all the people who work and are involved in 2nd Avenue Commons, we were able to mobilize and get people into a safe space for a set amount of time. We were excited this fall, right before the winter season hit, that we announced the reopening of 2nd Avenue Commons. And we not only announced, that it would be open, but it would be open longer hours, more days per week. And it's great because it's a low barrier shelter. It's an area where people can come in and they can wash their clothes, they can take a shower, they can seek medical care. So really, it's an incredible asset for our neighbors who are unhoused.
Keep it here. Coming up, there's something big ahead for Allegheny County in 2025. The county executive helps get us ready for the new airport terminal. Welcome back to For the Record. Finally this morning, I asked Allegheny County Executive Sara Innamorato about a major event the entire region will have its eyes on this year, the opening of the new $1.5 billion terminal at Pittsburgh International Airport. Take a look.
So the airport is awesome because it's like the first impression of our region of coming into Pittsburgh. So what I love about this new airport, and our leader at the airport, Christina Casota, says this all the time, is that this new terminal is an airport that is for Pittsburghers, built by Pittsburghers. So what's more than just like having a fancy new building and a new experience and a better experience moving through the Pittsburgh International Airport is how we got to this point. And one of the great initiatives that came out of this was a workforce program called Pit to Work, which put people through a apprenticeship program, a pre-apprenticeship program, and then paired them with unions that were working on site. So it wasn't just about like, oh, we put you through a training program for the sake of training, but you have a job. If you want the job at the end of it, you get it, and you get to work on building this new terminal, which is incredible. But what was unique about the program is that it met people where they were at. So it, presented opportunities for different types of transportation to make sure people could get to the job site. We improved service, bus service to the airport. There's on-site childcare. There's social services involved, so if folks need support in housing, or other support so that they can be successful in the program, that was provided. And we've put Pittsburghers who wouldn't necessarily have access to opportunity to work on that terminal building, and now they're part of a union and they have financial stability and a future. And that's really incredible to hear their stories when I've gone to the graduations, and we celebrated 1 year of that program mid-2024. So, we hope to expand that program as this project winds down, and, allow people to access opportunity, and, when we're making those types of public investments, that they result in shared prosperity. So, that's the thing that I'm really excited about, is the people that were involved in building our new airport and the people who are going to use it.
Thank you for joining me for today's edition of For the Record. We will see you next Sunday morning at 11:30. Have a good week.